And who is with us? Well, Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager for the Trump for President campaign. He's with us now and just got back from a day at the White House yesterday. Corey Lewandowski, quite the day, the F-35 flyover. I saw that when I was waiting to get into the bilateral press conference yesterday with the president. I know you spent the day with him and President Duda of Poland. Give us an update.
You know, John, as someone with the last name of Lewandowski, to have the opportunity to go to the White House and see the president of Poland, where obviously my ancestors are from on my father's side, and see the president of the United States putting his arms both literally and figuratively around Poland and thanking them for their strong, unwavering support of what we're trying to accomplish in the world, but being a great friend of the United States, stepping up and paying their 2% to NATO, making sure that they have the military equipment necessary to defend themselves in a really tough neighborhood, and talking about putting a few thousand troops in a rotating basis over in Poland was really special. And, I got the chance to spend some time, really private time alone with President Trump and President Duda, and I could see the interaction between the two of them, how much they just got along, how symbiotic it was, how they had such mutual respect for each other. And that F-35 flyover was really friggin' cool, okay, at the White House. And yesterday, when the president was, he had the meeting in the Oval where he took some questions, and they did the press conference outside. And then I was inside with them, kind of behind the scenes a little bit, and I get to see both of the presidents interact with the pilots of the F-35. And so, look, the White House has such special capabilities sometimes. They presented both of the presidents a picture of the flyover that had just taken place, and then the pilots who actually flew the jets were there shaking the hands of the presidents. And I get to talk to some of the other people there, the ministers from Poland who were in town, the assistant secretaries of defense, or the different people who were there. And they just couldn't get over how gracious things were, how professional it was. And look, a big, big issue that will probably get overlooked that was spoken about yesterday. And I give 1,000% credit to the U.S. ambassador in Poland, Georgette Mosbacher, was the visa waiver program. Something that most of your listeners don't know, but if you're from Poland, you understand you need to have a visa to come to the United States. Mm-hmm. Which means, look, you have to go and apply. It has to be granted. Then we don't have that requirement as a U.S. citizen to go to Poland. You can travel on your passport, go to Warsaw, go to anywhere you want to, and do it very freely. That's not a reciprocal deal. And so this is something that the Ambassador Mosbacher, has worked on for a long time. And you heard President Duda from the Rose Garden yesterday point her out and say, thank you for working on that visa waiver program. So now, once it's finally done, you'll have the opportunity as a Polish citizen to come to the United States without getting a visa.
Well, that rule has been in place for some time. It really made no sense because, as you say, it's not reciprocal. I can get my passport out tomorrow, book a flight to Warsaw, and be there in 24 hours, right?
That's exactly right. And look, these are our friends. Let's not kid ourselves. Poland, Israel, you go around the world and you look at who our friends are, our best friends around the world. Poland's right at the very top of that list. I've had the opportunity to go to Warsaw now on a number of occasions. They are so welcoming of me and U.S. citizens and U.S. companies. Look, they want U.S. investment in their country. They want our companies that are the very best at what they do in the world to go to Poland and to set up shop there so that they can continue to grow. They are so welcoming. They are so gracious. They're so thankful. And the relationship between President Duda of Poland and President Trump here of the U.S. is a very special one. There's been some talk that the president is going to go and do another trip to Poland. As you may remember, your listeners may remember, on his very first trip overseas, President Trump stopped in Warsaw and gave a tremendous speech and thanked the Poles for their continued support of our efforts around the world. I think you'll see President Trump back in Poland sometime before his November 2020 reelection, because he needs to remind the world of just how great our relationship with them is. And being part of that yesterday, having some time with those two presidents was, for a kid from Lowell, Mass., was a really special thing.
And I had heard through the Vine from somebody that President Trump, some of the Polish people that I'd talked to coming out of the bilateral press conference, that the president was very complimentary of you personally in front of President Duda, saying that you were one of the best, greatest Polish Americans in the United States. And so I think yesterday you got a lot of accolades. That's what I heard.
John,
that's what I heard.
The president's so gracious to me, as you know, and I'm so thankful for that. And look, guys who think back of where their families came from, their heritage, and have the opportunity, whether it's, if you're Reince Priebus and they do a thing for the Greek Americans at the White House, and it's something that is really important, you get to go there. It's that much more special. And for me, yesterday, having the president of Poland in, who's been in before, but not in such a significant way, where they announced all of the great deals they did, to be a very, very, very small part of it, and to try and represent Polish Americans, of which I'm very proud to be one. It was a really special opportunity. I saw so many friends who were at the reception. You don't think of them as Polish. You just think, hey, I'm just an American, right? But then you get there and you see all these Polish people, and even some of the White House staff who, I interact with a lot. Nick Luna, who's the president's bodyguard, says, "Oh, Corey, I forgot you're Polish." I said, well, the SKI kind of gives it away at the end of my name. But, it's just so nice and special, and a really special day. And to your listeners and the people who tune in, I just want to say thank you to the president. Thank you for being such a great emissary around the world for our friends and our allies, and reminding them that we will be with you every step of the way.
And he has their back. And of course, arrangements have been made. The president saying he might send another 1,000 U.S. Troops there for security. Also, the Polish the Polish government buying a number of these F-35s that were flown over yesterday, which means jobs are being created. And as the president says, better off buying them from us than somebody else, because you get a better quality and we get jobs and we get the investment here in the U.S. And the president, of course, might go back there. So in the bilateral press conference yesterday, one of the things that came up is the president basically defending or trying to explain what happened with the Mexico tariffs and how they brought the government of Mexico to the table. I know you're very familiar with that because the fake news has criticized it. Talking to the president privately, Corey, on the Mexico arrangement, what is his feeling now? Does he think it's going to be successful?
Look, I think the president wants it to be successful. He has every indication that he wants Mexico to stand up and do their fair share, which is to use the resources at their disposal to prevent people from using their country as a superhighway to walk through and come into our country illegally. This is no different than any other country would be asking for a type of mutual aid from another country next door. Can you imagine for 1 second if we had Americans just, and really the worst of the worst, just pouring through from Canada through the United States and going into Mexico by the thousands or tens of thousands in caravans, and we did nothing about it? Right? Mexico would be asking for it. And what the president had to do, and he's the only one who had the tenacity and the stones to do this, John, was he said, if you guys don't step up, we're going to start to penalize you monetarily. We're going to put a 5% tariff on you starting on what would have been Monday, and we're going to keep that in place until you decide that tariff, which would go from 5 to 10 and potentially to 25 or even higher, is going to be enough economic pain for you to use the resources that you have at your disposal to help us prevent these bad hombres, most of the time criminals, from coming into our country.
Right.
And Mexico, when they heard that, don't forget, President Trump was overseas when he made this announcement.
Right.
He was over in, recognizing the great World War II vets in Normandy.
He was in France.
For all of the work that they had done. Mexico immediately sent their top delegates to Washington, D.C. here and said, what do we have to do to solve this? Mm-hmm. They came up with a solution. This solution is a 90-day reprieve. This is not the end-all, be-all. If Mexico doesn't step up and start interdicting these individuals who are going through Mexico, the coyotes and the smugglers and the drug dealers who are using Mexico as a pass-through to get to the United States, if they don't start doing something about that, the tariffs go back in place. The president's going to review this policy by Labor Day. Mm-hmm. It gives Mexico 90 full days to implement some real changes. But if by Labor Day he doesn't see some changes, those tariffs will go into effect, and they'll start at 5 and go much higher if necessary.
Right. And basically the media was yesterday pressing him for touch points of success. And he said, I'm going to leave that open. I'm going to determine what they are, and I'm not going to put that out there. But I have in my head, he said, what I think they have to do, so we'll go from there. And I think he's better off than that. Again, remember, he said during the campaign when you were there, I'm not going to telegraph everything I do.
John, the problem is if you tell the media today that the only measure of success is that interdictions are up 12%, and we look at Labor Day and let's say it's 11.999997%.
They'll say it failed.
They'll say, oh, you failed.
Right.
And so this president knows what he expects, and I think the government of Mexico knows and understands what the expectation is of the United States. They're going to work to get that done, and so I don't believe there's any value in the president going and saying this is the only metric, because there's multiple metrics, John. Look, you have to remember, these people who are coming across the border aren't coming across, the land crossing where the guards are standing, right? They're cutting through fences, they're going over walls. And so we need help, and we need the Mexican government to deploy their 6,000 troops that they said they're willing to do on their border to prevent people from coming into Mexico first. And then as these caravans move through their country, they need to use the resources that they have to make sure that when they reach the northern part of Mexico, the southern part of the U.S., there is no opportunity for them to cross the border, because we can't have drones and surveillance equipment and men and women on the border, which we have every single day, but we need additional help. It is a very porous border. It is unfathomable to me that this is still a problem in 2019. It's been going on for 50 years. This is the first president to force Mexico to do something about it, or economic sanctions will be in place. Every other president before him could have done it. They didn't have